So as I said, you guys will be able to use the chat feature at this time as we go through the progressive discipline. This is your opportunity to learn about the process at UNT and then, understand how you communicate with your HR business partner regarding the options that you're wanting to take with your employee if there are issues that have been presented. So on the next slide, we're going to, and do you guys have your participant toolkit? You'll be able to take a look at that as we're going through this as well. What we would like to look at, this next slide that we're going to look at is going to be an annotation slide. And I would like to get your feedback. I'm going to ask you some questions and ask you to give feedback on progressive discipline. So are you guys familiar with annotating?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Just in case there are some people who have questions, it's going to be at the top of the screen. You'll be able to type and all of that on the screen. Please feel free to type your answers there. All right, with that, we will go to the next slide. All right, here we go. So what are some common issues and concerns encountered with employees? What do you deal with and what has been easy, what has been difficult? They know loopholes. Yes, there are some employees who will study loopholes. What else?
I'm sorry, I can't find the annotate feature under the view options.
Okay, are you able to see your, let's see.
It might be because I joined via web browser. I don't know if maybe I need to have the actual Zoom downloaded, but I don't see that option.
I'm not sure. Let me take a look.
I'm sorry.
So if you go to the top of your screen, do you see where it says that you're viewing my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then choose the view options from the drop-down menu.
Yeah, I don't see it there.
And it's not there?
No.
Okay,
Mine is a little bit different. There is if you go down to the bottom left, there's a little circle with a pencil. Maybe that.
Thank you.
Maybe it's just because I'm on the web version, but I'll see if I can download Zoom and do it that way. Sorry.
Okay. And if you wanted, you can drop your comment into the chat if you'd like. That's another option for you. So we will make this work. We will figure out how to make it work and communicate how you guys need to. So thank you for letting me know, Erica.
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to use the chat. I will be monitoring the chat. So.
Yes, please. Thank you. So we have this task needs more time, issues with folks not meeting deadlines, not showing up on time, prioritizing, managing conflicting priorities. Yes, yes. Delegating tasks to other team members, wasting time during the day. Always family issues, especially telling I have children. Okay. That'll be a part of one of the scenarios that you guys see coming up, something similar along those lines. So I'm glad that one came up in here. Not attending mandatory meetings, staying on task, underperforming. So looks like we have a couple with timeliness. Negative interactions between employees and absenteeism. Yep. Discos. Are people dancing in the office? I mean, we do like to have fun. You're at work. You spend a lot of time here. But a disco? No, I'm just playing.
I was supposed to say disconnected.
Okay. I love it. It showed up perfectly. So thank you. Awesome. Staying on task. So staying on task, focusing, underperforming, not attending mandatory. Oh, just checking annotate. Is that you, Erica?
It's Sheila.
Oh,
That's
Sheila.
me.
Okay.
I had
Okay.
a problem with it last time, so I thought for sure I'm gonna check it this time.
Got it. It's working.
Yes.
Awesome. Not following instructions. Okay. So just when you guys have encountered those situations, what did you find was easier to deal with? How did you handle those situations? Did you find it? Okay. So in a situation where someone was delegating their task to a fellow team member, how did you handle that? I'm not sure who wrote it, but was there any difficulty managing that situation once you found out, of course? No one? Okay.
Normally I find if you bring things to people's attention, they realize that, yeah, we see you and we see that you're not doing the right thing. And normally if you bring it to their attention in a polite way,
Mhm.
normally they get back on track.
Awesome. So, I mean, and that's true. I'm glad that you said that. Bringing it to the person's attention. That's definitely something that's going to be highlighted throughout this session today. Someone can't fix something if they don't know about it, if they don't realize it. Sometimes it's intentional because people do know loopholes. They will try to figure out how to get where they want to be, how they, and sometimes do very little in the process. But if you bring it to someone's attention and they realize, one, that they do have a manager who's paying attention to them, not because they're spying on them, so to speak, but they want them to be successful in their position, then that may be a motivator for them to perform and not be in a situation where they're underperforming or just giving tasks to other people, right? So we're going to move on. Any other questions, any other things that you guys or does anyone else want to share how they've handled any of the situations that you guys put on there? You guys are a little quiet.
Well, I put the not showing up on time.
Okay.
And basically I supervise the part-time desk clerks.
Okay.
And so just reminding them that if they don't show up on time, the person that's there that they're relieving, that makes them late for whatever it is they may need to do, the person that that they're relieving. So when you put it that way and you ask them how would they feel if they had an appointment, but they ended up being late because the person that was relieving them was late, it changes things a little bit. So
I agree, it does. So, and we will have a scenario that's a little bit similar to that, where there's an employee who's being given a task, or another employee's having to take on a task, so to speak, because someone else isn't there or not showing up or whatever have you. And we're going to talk through that a little bit later. So thank you for sharing that situation. Are there any additional questions? We're going to talk about resources that we'll have available for employees. Someone did mention about family issues coming up or some staying on task. That piece, is it something, are there some underlying issues that are going on there? So we'll talk through those things as we move further into the session. So thank you guys for sharing. We're going to move to bear with me here. Okay. And I need to clear the annotation. Bear with me just a moment. So in your own, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dawn. I appreciate that. So this is an opportunity for everyone to kind of share at this point. So please unmute yourselves. What are your thoughts about progressive discipline? When you hear that, what do you think about?
I think about various different steps or various different levels from maybe just a verbal to a written to something more severe, suspension or and up to even termination. So I think of a gradual process when I hear progressive. Um,
I second Kim. It needs to be progressive, right? So like it can't just be, there are very few situations where we immediately go to termination, but I would say there needs to be the progress. So like it can't come out of left field for somebody to be like, oh, what do you mean I'm already at step 2? I didn't know what I did wrong at step 1. But having that gradual process of, okay, I told you 1 time, I told you twice, I told you 3 times, as opposed to just waiting for it to get to step 3, if that makes sense.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you both for sharing. So anyone else want to jump in? Any other thoughts?
And for me, I also think of documentation during this process. It's so important. I mean, years ago, I had an employee who was never on time to work and was barely in the office. And as much as I loved my job, I didn't love doing 2 jobs. And so, step 1 was, meeting with them face to face and then documenting that meeting and just going forward and forward and forward. So, along with meeting with the employee, it is important to document so you have backup.
Exactly. So thank you. All great feedback, and I appreciate that. So thank you. So just the documentation is definitely important throughout this process. Some of the documentation the employee will see, some they won't. Just because as a supervisor, we do encourage you to keep desk notes. That way you can keep track of things. And then it's also important when evaluation time rolls around, right? When you're having the performance or your weekly conversations or bi-weekly conversations with your employees, you definitely want to have documentation available. So by definition, progressive discipline is a systematic process where there are increasing penalties, the verbal, the coaching, the verbal, written, final written, penalties that come about each time a performance or behavior and or attendance issue arises with the goal of correcting the issue. Progressive disciplinary actions may be needed for continuous violations of the same or related work standards. I would like to note that in Texas, we are an at-will employer. And as an at-will employer, it means that it's an employment relationship where an indefinite duration that may be terminated by either party at either time, with or without cause, for any reason except one that is unlawful. And so I'm not sure how many of you have always been in Texas or have been in Texas for a while and are familiar with the at-will employment. Some states, you have to go through a process and make sure you have all of these things in place. Not here in Texas. But I will say that one of the things that we do encourage is that our supervisors utilize the progressive disciplinary action process to, as Monique and Kim indicated, try to encourage the employees to do better so they're not surprised. Discipline should never be something that the employee is not, they shouldn't be surprised by their lack of performance. In most cases, they will know. Sometimes they may not realize what's going on due to various issues that may be coming about. So again, thank you for great
Can I
feedback.
ask a question real
Sure,
quick?
of course.
So, what if you have one of those workers that is stubborn, that won't fix themselves, even if you've gone through pretty much all the steps, and they did like, can't remember what it's called, like an appeal, and you're stuck? At that point, what do you do?
So when you say appeal, you're saying that disciplinary action has gone into
Or
play?
like, yeah, like if we've written them up like a few times, but then, oh, what is it called? Like they put something against you, so therefore you can't discipline them anymore until like their case gets solved. Does that make sense?
So I think there
Can't
may be a
remember
couple of
that's what it's
different things
called.
at play here. So if
The
there's,
grievance.
if,
Yeah.
are you referring to maybe, are you referring to a grievance?
I think that's what it's called, yeah.
Okay, so in the grievance process, and we'll definitely talk, we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the process. That's in, that information is in the toolkit that you guys have. I believe it's towards the last page or whatever have you, but it talks about how the employee can respond to disciplinary action. So they can indicate that they're wanting to dispute whatever disciplinary action they've received, that they would like to either have it removed or changed or whatever have you. We don't know what that would look like, but they can. Now, that does not prevent a supervisor from moving forward with any additional disciplinary action. One of the things I would say is that, again, we are consultants. If you are having chronic issues with employees and the coaching piece is not working for you, please reach out to your business partner. And I do want to highlight, I did not include a list of business partners right now because we're in a bit of a shuffle. And so we are working on updates for that. And as soon as we have it available, I will make sure to get it so you guys will have a copy of the list of your dedicated business partner based on your department and your area that you support. But I would say reach out to your business partner and talk through it with them, because if we have to correct the behavior, and it's not just a free for all just because you filed a grievance regarding or it to have a particular action reversed or whatever have you, you're still expected to perform your duties. And so there may be other disciplinary action that may come out of that. If there's a situation where someone's filed an EO complaint, or if we have a situation where there may be a personal issue, something medical, we need to talk through those things to understand what's going on before we kind of move forward. But if you're doing your coaching and counseling, you're connecting with your business partner, I think you will have an idea of where you can go and what can be done with that particular situation. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? All right. So here are the steps that you guys mentioned. We have the coaching and feedback. So those are kind of the ongoing conversation when you have your regular meetings with your employees. How's it going? What are you working on? What's the status of this project? Are you having any trouble? Do you have the tools that you need? So there aren't any surprises from you on your side as a supervisor. Oh, I didn't realize they didn't have access to the software program that I'm expecting them to have access to. That's why I'm not getting the reports. The record of coaching and counseling would be an actual, that's when things are getting pretty serious, because okay, you're making a note in the employee's file for the employee's file that will be the basis for a written reprimand. So does that make sense? It doesn't actually go in the employee's file unless they get a written reprimand to follow. So again, throughout this process, we're wanting to encourage employees to improve. We're wanting them to be successful. It's up to them to choose the route that they're wanting to go. Okay. And then we have the after the written reprimand, we have the final final written. And that one, I would like to know, you guys see suspension on there. We don't use the suspension process at UNT. There are some areas we have our policies across the UNT system. And so for us, we typically do not, and I can't think of a situation where we have utilized a suspension. There are situations where someone may be placed on leave, but it's not a suspension process, and that's typically, depending on their eligibility, a paid leave, the position that they would be in. And then lastly, we have termination. That we do want that to be our last resort. However, I will say, if there's a situation where an employee has done something that is just beyond termination, that may be the first and the last step in that situation. But again, it's being in communication with your business partner about what's happening, having your documentation ready. And as you're going through the steps of discipline, you want to make sure that you're going through the process, right? You're wanting to ensure that you have set those expectations for the employee so they know what they're supposed to be doing. And hopefully not trying to pass off their duties to someone else. But if they are, remind them, this is what you're supposed to be doing. We can always ask for help. There may be times you need help, or you as a supervisor may need help, or your employees may need help. And we offer that support to one another, but it's not to the point to where it's burdensome for someone else on the staff or you as a supervisor. There has to be balance, and everyone is judged on their own performance. Has the employee received feedback on whatever the issue is? Expectations for improvement. Are there opportunities for training? Would training be appropriate in that case? Just some nuggets out there. Have you been able to gather the facts of the situation? Is it just that someone came into the office and said, so-and-so did such and such? Do we have all of the details? Or are we just going off someone being upset because their coworker walked by their desk? But definitely understanding what's going on, having that dialogue with the employee. Again, you guys are going to hear me say this repeatedly. Please have regularly scheduled meetings with your team as a group, so everyone hears what your expectations are of your team, and then on an individual basis. Because there are situations where you may, that employees need to have that private space, that one-on-one space. And the more interaction that you have with your employees, not necessarily where, you guys are going to lunch or anything along those lines, but if they understand that they have a platform where they can come to you and say, I'm having this problem or this issue work-related, as a supervisor, how can I assist you to be successful in your job? And here coming up, I'm going to let you guys know about some resources that are available if there are things beyond the work setting that an employee needs assistance with. Any questions so far? Am I moving too fast? Am I talking too quickly? Please feel free to unmute. Okay, I'm seeing some head shaking. No, please feel free to unmute. Jump in at any time, okay? Thank you for the feedback. And has the employee been able to respond to the concerns that have been brought forth? Sometimes it may be something where they may need to take a step back to look at whatever's happened and provide you an explanation if they made a mistake on a report. Or, if it's something where someone said that they did something, have they had an opportunity to give you feedback regarding what that situation was? Again, gathering all of the facts for that situation.
I have a question, Lakeisha.
Sure.
Would you recommend a third party if the supervisor does not feel safe with having a conversation with the employee who may have feel very angry where they're unable to de-escalate? Would you recommend that? How do you think, how should managers proceed when having this conversation?
Thank you for asking that question. Safety first. If you do not feel safe having a conversation with an employee, please let your business partner know. And you guys can talk through, is it, in this case, would you have someone maybe standing outside of the room? Maybe would you change the meeting location? Would you go into a conference room versus being in the office space to allow yourself room to be able to leave if you need to? Is it a situation where you would have maybe a step level or a supervisor participating, just let the employee know, this person is just here, fly on the wall, for our conversation, opportunities to meet via Zoom. We have a virtual world that we live in right now, so you do have opportunities to provide a buffer. And we know that, unfortunately, in our virtual world, one of the other realities is that not everyone is concerned about the next person's safety, and their anger may escalate. So we do have to think about those things, but you do have ways to navigate it. Discuss those options again with your business partner. And I will say this, in some extreme cases, there have been situations where police have been on standby, either in the building, walking around, or just on the outside of the building. But again, as your HR department, we are here to help you and support you through that situation. So that way, one, we can hopefully, if there's a situation where that employee's actually needing some help, that we're able to offer them that particular help from an EAP standpoint, the resources that I mentioned, and also in the participant toolkit, you guys will see where it talks about our EAP program. We have care team resources that are available. So yes, just please communicate anytime you feel unsafe. And then too, here's the thing. As you talk through the situation with your business partner, you're able to sort through what's happened, what's gotten you to that point. Is there a threat there? And how would we need to handle it? That would actually take us into a different realm if there has been a threat made against someone. So, Dr. D, thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yes, great information. Thank you so much
you.
for sharing it.
Of course, of course. Any other questions right now before we continue?
I have
Any
a
feedback?
question.
Sure.
When you say business partner,
Mhm.
who are you referring to?
So I'm a part of the employee relations team.
Mm-hmm.
And so my team we're staffed with business partners. So we are the HR resource, your dedicated HR resource who you can go to with whatever HR related questions, and even unrelated HR questions. We're here. We will connect you with the resources that you need. We've received some random requests that are not even anything that we would handle in our office, but we will help you to get connected to the appropriate resource. That's why
So when you say business partners, you're referring to HR?
yes, I'm referring to your HR business partner. So it's going to be your dedicated human resources contact for your department. So if you have a question about compensation, you would reach out to your HR business partner. If you have a question that's about FMLA, benefits, your point of contact, your first point of contact can be your HR business partner. You can, or they will either point you if you have a specific question that you're asking them, they may need to point you to our benefits department or connect you with resources from compensation. Or if it's a general enough answer that we're able to give, we will provide that. And then, you can move on to the next step forward towards resolution. But we are here to support both you and your staff from an HR perspective, just to make sure that you have someone there who can help you through the day. We are here.
Thank you.
I link in
Of course.
the tab to the UNT HR it has a list of all the HR business partners.
Mhm.
So.
Thank you, Shelley. And our names, and here's the thing, you can reach out to anyone on our team if you have your dedicated business partner you're aware of at this point in time. You can reach out to them directly, but should that person not be available, either one of us would be able to guide you. Okay, and if you're not sure, you can always call the main HR line and they will connect you with that particular person. Just let them know where you are, which department you're in. And as I said, we are in a state of transition. And so we're moving some departments around right now. But regardless of that, you can reach out to any of us at any time and we'll make sure that you're connected to the appropriate person or resource that you're needing. Okay? Any additional questions before we keep rolling along? All right, I don't see anyone come out. Oh, I heard someone. Okay, I think we're good. So, I'm actually going to, did Dawn? I think Dawn may have dropped off. I lost connectivity, but we're going to keep going. So just to kind of go back to when we're going through the progressive discipline, what are we wanting to look at? So we want to make sure that we have like I said, the employee has had an opportunity to respond to the situation that's taken place. What type of action would be reasonable and consistent? Do we know? And would based on the situation that's taken place, and is there documentation on previous attempts to correct this behavior? So that's where that supervisor file comes into play. It's definitely necessary to keep notes, not as an I gotcha, but I want to help you succeed. This is a pattern that I'm noticing. And those are things that you can say to your employee. Hey, I've noticed this is a pattern. As you said before, Kim, about someone who's always coming in late. You know, this is a pattern that I'm noticing. Is there something that's going on? And I would like to point out as well, we do have flexible work arrangements for some departments. Is there any flexibility that you would have to be able to offer or discuss with that employee, notwithstanding that if they're at the point where they're getting disciplinary action, but is that something that, you know, you may look at down the road that may be beneficial for them? Okay. Again, just reiterating, discipline should never be a surprise. Okay. Oops, I went a little bit too far. So one of the things is this next slide that we're looking at, we're wanting to look at pie. Have any of you guys seen this before? No? Okay. So the pie is for us to help us navigate the process of dealing with issues that may come about. Okay. So we have, let's see, I am actually going to, bear with me. I believe the recording is still going. But
Yeah, it is. It's still going. I'm here.
okay, I didn't see. I was like, where'd you go?
Oh no, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So what we're wanting to do is explain the problem. What is the impact this issue is having on the team? And what are you expecting that person to change? What expectation are you setting for them? What goals are they supposed to reach to help eliminate the problem? So that's the realm that we're wanting to operate in. And when we talk about we're wanting to be the employee to be successful in their position, you know, we want to approach from how can we do that? Going back to, do they have all of the tools and resources that they need? Do they have the support that they need? Have they been trained properly? And is there, you know, do they have the appropriate access? Is it, so those are things that come into play from an employer perspective of us helping to ensure that the employee has an opportunity to be successful. So are there some situations that you guys have maybe run into where, you know, employees did not have the resources, or where you've actually utilized Pi, but didn't realize you were utilizing it? Not everyone at once.
Goes back to when we were talking about earlier, you know, when you have a person on your team delegating their tasks to another team member, I can see this could be beneficial in addressing that with them, because that impacts the team, because you know, I think everybody kind of has their desk load and assigned tasks, you know, so that everybody has a balanced workload, and it may be, you know, set up to their specific skill level or what have you. And so if you've got one team member delegating to another, then that's obviously impacting their workload, and what is that taking their attention from that they need to be, you know, focusing on. And so I think you can really kind of use this to really address that specific issue, because you can explain the expectation is that you take care of your tasks, you know, and collaborate or help as needed. But there is also an impact because you're pulling that person away from their tasks. So I think this is a good visual to help with that specific issue.
Exactly. And thank you for that feedback. I also want to note that termination was that last piece that was on the progressive disciplinary action piece. Again, I've mentioned communicating with your business partner. All written documentation, your business partner will review it with you to make sure that it contains all of the components that are needed. And any involuntary terminations, we will help you with a letter. We will provide a letter to you that you can present to the employee and walk you through those steps as well. So I just wanted to double back and just make sure that you guys are aware of that. Okay. Awesome.
So I have a question. I'm sorry.
Sure. No. Let's go. What's your question?
Okay, so for me, I have a habit of like just doing it myself if an employee drops the ball. So it doesn't necessarily impact the team, but it does impact me. So how would you navigate that?
Well,
I just want to say same. I have the same problem.
I can, sometimes it's one of those things, whether you're at home or you're at work, sometimes it's easier to do it yourself, right? Just because you know it's done the way you want it to be done. But ask yourself, if I do this for my employee, am I setting them up for success? Also, how much frustration am I building for myself if I'm not holding them accountable? So those are some questions that sometimes it may be something that's nominal or whatever have you, 2 seconds, but over a period of time, if you're not addressing it with that employee, you are going to get frustrated. You're going to call your business partner and you're going to say, I want them gone. And that's we hear that so many, but it's okay. So let's take a step back and unpack everything that's going on here. And truly, the employee may not be a great fit for them. But do we really know if they're a great fit if they're not even performing their duties? Because we're holding their hand through the process. We definitely have to hold them accountable and set the expectations for them to do their job. And I get sometimes there may be situations where having those conversations can be difficult. Your business partner is there to have those conversations with you. If you're wanting to bounce ideas or approaches, that's what we're here for. That way to help navigate those conversations. And then we also have training regarding having difficult conversations. And Don is Dr. Don is well aware, being one of our ODE consultants, of the opportunities out there for you guys to connect even with ODE when navigating conversations or communication with your team, within your team, even, and then from a team building perspective as well. So did that answer your questions? Awesome.
It did.
Awesome. So, and you know what, it's great that you want to help your team, you know, just to keep progressing, but sometimes you do have to take a step back and say, is this really helping? How do I provide the best foundation for you as a supervisor, and then also that employee?
You have, Lakeisha, you have a comment in the chat
Okay.
And the time, effort it takes you, could be better used elsewhere to support other employees.
Mhm. True.
And that's from Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. Exactly. Anything else out there? So some important points, which is something that we've already been talking about. We've addressing the problem quickly, not letting it fester on. So perfect timing on that inquiry. Being consistent. How are you approaching the situation with your employee who sits on the desk on the left? Are you approaching the situation the same with the employee who sits on at the desk on the right? Are you giving more leeway for this employee? What does that look like? And being specific. What are the expectations? What are the goals that you're wanting them to achieve, or you're needing them to achieve from a business perspective, right? Is there anything on there that you guys that see that stick out to you? Nothing on that one. So
I would say one thing that sticks out to me there is just address the problem quickly. So you don't have that problem of it's been let slide, and then you have a hard time putting the genie back in the bottle. It's, you know, and I mean, you can think of a million examples of that kind of thing happening.
Exactly. And that's it.
I also think, yeah, addressing the problem quickly, and being consistent, because if you're having a problem with one employee, more than likely the other employees are seeing it and they're feeling that as well. And then you're going to get them having issues because they're like, you're not solving the problem with this one person. And then that just causes tension in the whole office. So making sure that the problem is addressed very quickly, because it could be affecting your entire office, not just that one person.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I also think it's important. I also like how you've added, and it is important to ask how you can help, because it gets to the root of the problem, and there may be something that they're not comfortable sharing, and it can, it can break down that barrier, so to speak, and show that you're more than a supervisor and you're willing to help.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you to Thomas and Kathleen and Jess for sharing. Yes, I agree with all of that. We have people. We're people, and we deal with people, right? Everyone has a life outside of work, whether we have a family of 10 at home or we are a family of 1 at home. We have a life outside of work, and things happen. Sometimes things beyond our control. At the end of the day, allowing your employees to have that opportunity to speak with you one-on-one, outside of the group setting, outside of the team meetings, to where they feel like they can come to you and talk to you. It's not that you're wanting them to overshare. Is please feel free, if someone's sharing something, there are certain things how can I help you from a work perspective? I'm going to be able to provide you these resources, and at any given time, you can bring your HR business partner into the conversation. The employees can reach out to us and discuss those things that you may feel a little bit over the top for you as a supervisor. May not want to necessarily hear, but want the employee to be connected with the appropriate resources. Just let us know. And, even thinking about our values, how do we show we care? We don't show that we care by ignoring someone. So we want them to have that open door and be able to have that dialogue about what's going on and how we may be able to assist them to be successful.
Excuse me, Lakeisha, it is 2:54. I didn't know if you wanted to take a break at your request. I know you mentioned 2:55, so I just want to make you aware.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Perfect timing. I do have one slide actually 2 more slides, and then we'll wrap up, and then we're going to take a break. That will probably be about maybe 5 to 7 minutes or so. And so we're gonna move along to that, and then we'll take our break, okay? So our next slide is basically more of the same. Uh-oh, I went too far. So other points, other important points continued. So we're talking about remembering the golden rule. That's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Taking this step further, our chancellor also often mentions the platinum rule. How do you want to be treated? Treat other people how you want to be treated. And just remembering that you are dealing with another individual, another person, will help you throughout that process. I do want to highlight, if an employee is having an issue, please avoid removing or changing their job duties. I cannot tell you how many times, oh, well, they're not doing this, but that's what they were hired to do. So if they're not doing it, how are you judging their performance? And if you're doing it, how are you doing your other job duties? How are you focusing on what you're needing to present for the organization, right? And then dialogue, have active listening, making it a conversation. A conversation is actually a two-way street. It's not someone talking at another person, right? That's why I want you guys to unmute, and I appreciate when you unmute and you talk back and you give me feedback. It's important for us to be able to have that community, be able to communicate and understand one another's viewpoints, and gain ideas and ways to work through things, right? If you don't talk to the other person, then you really don't understand what the issue is. Okay. Any other things on there that stick out to you guys?
Oh, I just wanted to comment on the talk in private.
Sure.
It's not really about the amount of time. I've had fantastic feedback. I mean, even in just 5 minutes, it's really personable, and they just feel, like they're heard. So I've had amazing success with that. So I actually do it more and more every day.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it helps my team a lot, and it's just everybody feels appreciated when they're heard. So it's not about how much time, it's just the fact that you make time to do it. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I see your it doesn't have your full name. It has your EUID on there.
I need to figure out how to fix that, but yeah, I'm Andy Merritt, the
Thank
electrical
you, Andy.
supervisor. I'll try to fix that. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just didn't, I can see everyone else's name, and I didn't want to say AJM 0662. So yeah.
Oh, I'll answer to anything. Yeah.
Lakeisha, we have Monique in the chat, and she said, because some people counter the golden rule with, oh, I wouldn't mind someone yelling, or I wouldn't mind hard feedback. I like to look at it and think of this person you love, care about the most. How would you want someone to treat them? Treat people like that.
Exactly. We want to keep it professional and respectful. We are working with adults, and not saying that it's appropriate to yell if you're dealing with a child or whatever have you, not saying that, but you are dealing with another adult. And there are ways to give constructive criticism and feedback that someone will be receptive to without yelling or saying something in an inappropriate manner to them.
You have one more, Lakeisha.
Thank
What about
you.
when we've done all these things multiple times with one employee, yet it never goes anywhere further than frustration? What do we do?
Progressive discipline. That's why we're here. We are going to navigate this process. But yeah, so connect with your business partner. If it's a repetitive thing with this employee, first time, okay, yeah. Second time, who had a question? I heard someone say something.
And what if we're told no?
Okay, so you're saying that you've connected with your business partner and they've told you no. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and let me jump in here if I can as another aspect, because I kind of have this question too, if you're told no.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was faced with a situation and it was my supervisor who was telling me that they didn't want to take that
Okay.
step. I kind of had that roadblock. So I think that's a great question, what you do then.
And if your supervisor, and definitely consult within your department leadership, there may be factors at play that you're not aware of, that your business partner may be aware, or whatever. I don't know. So I can't speak to a specific situation. If there could be a situation where someone has an ADA request, and that's in process, and it's okay. The employee needs something to be able to be successful, to perform the essential functions of their job. And you guys aren't aware, or you haven't been made aware of that, or something along those lines. So we never know what the underlying issue is. And again, you have your chain of command within your department. Please stay in contact with your HR business partner. And having that open dialogue, and maybe your business partner needs to maybe it's a conversation your business partner may be having with your step level supervisor. Hey, this issue is going on. Is there something that what can I help with? But again, everything is on a case by case basis. And we can't just pinpoint, because all of the factors may be different. There may be one slight thing within this case that's different from someone else who may be having an attendance issue. And I'm just using that as an example. Does that help?
I'm just going to jump on mic because it's easier.
Okay.
Listen, I've done all these things. I've done everything. And just being vulnerable for a moment,
Okay.
it goes nowhere. It is very frustrating. But when you're not heard, it's like, what do you do? Do I find a different job? You know?
I'm sorry that you feel that way. And I don't know which,
Right.
I don't know the area.
And that's
Hey.
totally not what I meant to happen like right now. I was just like, what what if we've done all these things? And yes, ma'am.
Because I work closely with the business partners. I know one of the things that the business partner and I typically do when we partner, if all these things have happened, is we try to find an intervention. And typically that's when ODE comes in, and we help provide an intervention where both parties are heard and somebody's being held accountable. So and that is a conversation even outside of this progressive discipline. So I would just encourage you to continue to work with your HR business partner, and then they will reach out and look for other resources. And typically that's when organizational development engagement consultants come in, and we provide, and we'll assess the situation, we diagnose, and then we provide some additional interventions to help support the senior business partners in that area, and you. So
thank you for that, Dawn. And Joy, I would say, like Dawn said, connect with your business partner. So I'm assuming that you're working with your business partner on a regular basis.
Yeah, for more than a year now.
Okay. This is where, and I know you said the documentation, I can't speak to the situation specifically. There are some things that, and without knowing the conversations and what's taking place, I really can't speak to that. I do understand your frustration. If it's a communication issue, I'll say this: if it's a communication issue with the employee and they're not getting it, or there's just personality conflicts or something along those lines, we do have mediation that's available where you can actually have a third party come in and you decide, both parties have to be willing to participate. But then
Right.
from there, you decide how your working relationship is going to progress forward, how you're going to communicate. And that sets the expectation for the
Right.
group, so to speak.
And
So
it has been offered. I've tried to do it and they said no, the employee needs to reach out. So we let them know and they never did. So they were the ones who wanted it, but they didn't follow through. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know.
Understood. So that's a question offline. Again, I don't
Yes.
know the ins and out. Every situation is different. But appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing. I think that as we go through the scenarios, when we get back from break, maybe there may be some situations that we talk through that you guys have experienced, or maybe even you yourself have experienced, and then maybe discover some additional opportunities to connect with that employee to either help them decide if they want to be successful here, or if, maybe there's something different that needs to take place. Because employees choose their path. And oftentimes you will hear that, and take this with it, are the issues that people are experiencing interpersonal, or just personality differences, or are they just truly not performing at their job, and where do those two intersect? And the mediation process can definitely help with that. And if the employee is unwilling, I do believe that there are probably some other things that are going on that may be sorted through. Okay, I'm sorry that I can't be.
No, it's okay. I was just throwing it out there just because I've tried everything. Let me see if, she's got any ideas. But thank you. I appreciate
Of
y'all's
course.
input.
Thank you. So we are actually going to take a break. Is there a different way that we can go about to help with the situation, right? As Joy was sharing about her concerns and what she's encountered, is there a different way that we can take a look at this? So that way we can get either, like I said, the employee to be successful here within our department, or what other opportunities are there? How do we navigate that piece? And it's not something where you move towards termination with someone. It may be that, you're doing all you can to help them, and they come to the realization, this is not the right position for me. Because some people will do that, but we want to do it in a respectful and professional manner. And anyone at any given point, whatever their decision is within the organization, whether they're leaving voluntarily or involuntarily, we want them to walk away with dignity. We never want to take that away from someone. Okay.
Can I ask a question
I
real
see.
quick?
Yes, just saw you got out. You came off mute, Jason. What's up?
The previous slide, one of the points was don't discuss personality traits. I was just wondering if you had an example of that.
So, the best way to discuss that is to stick with the performance issues, right? What performance issues are they presenting? What aspects of their job are they not performing? Because at the end of the day, we have their job description, what we've told them we want them to do. And sometimes that changes. It morphs as business needs changes. Think about when the pandemic started. Everyone went to a virtual world. There were job duties that went away for some people because they were the front desk person. They were the receptionist or whatever, that face that everyone saw when they came in. That had to be modified in some cases. So I would just, because it can be hard to not talk about someone's personality, but if you focus on what they're supposed to be performing in the department in their job description and you stick to that, I think it'll make those conversations easier rather than your attitude is bad all the time. Well, what are the underlying issues for that? Is it a situation where they need to connect with EAP? Are they having family problems? Do they have a situation with their spouse or significant other? Are their children presenting issues if they have children? Do they just not, was their coworker irritating them? You know, we don't know what those things are, but approaching from how can I help you be successful in your job? Because I see that these are some pieces, some pieces that you're missing. How can I help you perform them? Does that help? Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Kesha, I have a question. What if it's a situation where the job is just not a good fit? But they're wanting to is there ever an opportunity to move to a different position other than just leaving the company?
They can apply for different positions within the organization at any given time. At any given time. So it's up that, and that's why I say it's up to the employee to decide from that piece, as long as they have all of the tools that they need for the position. And then if they just keep underperforming and we're addressing the duties and the tasks that they're expected and giving them clear expectations, I would think that we would, if they've done something and you're just at that point, then it may be termination. It may be an involuntary termination. But we have to understand what all of the components that fit into that puzzle. Okay?
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for asking, and thank you for bringing that up, Jason. So what we are going to do now, do you guys each have your toolkits? Okay. So we have breakout rooms that have been set up for you guys. You guys will be in groups of 3. And I think Dr. D, do we need to make any adjustments?
I already did.
Okay.
So because you have 3 or 4 people that didn't make it, so I just reorganized. But
okay, perfect.
Basically, where you put them is just a few other people I had to, so
move around a little bit. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
It was 3 and 2 groups of 3 and 2.
Awesome. Perfect. So what we're going to do, we're going to move you guys into your breakout rooms. The breakout room will have the scenarios that you will focus on. And when you guys come back, I would like to have someone read the scenario and then someone to give feedback. That way, each of you or 2 of you to give feedback on it. That way, everyone has an opportunity, if they would like, to share and have an opportunity to speak. For those of you that have 2 cases or 2 scenarios that you're being assigned, we're going to go through each one of the cases first, and then we'll go back to those second ones towards the end, and we'll decide either we'll discuss them as a group or, if you guys have any questions about those specifically, we can discuss those specific questions depending on timing. Okay. So you guys will have about 5 to 7 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Are you guys ready to go? All right, awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I'm sure you guys had some lively discussions just by the way you guys went into the scenarios. So again, we're going to have about a minute and a half to 2 minutes for each of your groups to present. And those of you that have 2 assigned, we're going to do the first one. So we're going to start with Megan. And then once we get through the list, we'll go back to Brad. Okay. So breakout room 1, who had Megan and Brad?
We did.
All right, awesome. So who's going to read and who's going to talk about your thoughts for Megan and Brad? I mean, for Megan, sorry.
Monique, you want to read? And
Yes.
I can talk about it.
Sounds good. Megan is a great performer when she is at work, but you are sick and tired of her being late all the time and you are ready to fire her. This behavior has been going on for a while and you have mentioned it in passing a couple of different times. You have even suggested alternative work schedules, but Megan has not improved. When you are starting to look for documentation for times when you have discussed this with her, you find nothing. Zilch, nada. You have addressed her tardiness issues very specifically, and now you find that she is behaving poorly at work. She is discourteous to coworkers and customers. In addition, her tardiness issue has evolved into an absenteeism issue. You have heard through the grapevine that she is having some issues at home. You have no clear information on what those issues are.
Okay, so what we talked about is that we would actually speak to her. The first thing we would do is let her know that her behavior is totally unacceptable. That is it is not what she's doing, the way she's acting is not acceptable. And we thought we would refer her to EAP so that they could assist her with getting down to the bottom of what's causing all the changes. If she was a great employee before and now she's having these issues, apparently there's obviously something going on. And so as not to open up that door to maybe go down a road we don't want to go down, we thought it'd be best for her to go to EAP with the counseling. So with the resources that they have an abundance of resources that would be able to assist her.
Great. And I'm glad that
And
you
to also document the conversation, well document the conversation that we had with her about everything that transpired.
sounds good. One thing you use the term her behavior. Just make sure that you guys are being specific. When you're talking to the employee, you have been tardy on this day, or absent on this day, or whatever have you. That way they can reference back to, that way it's not just the behavior because I don't know what behavior you're referring to. So we definitely want to be specific with them. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the EAP piece. Is it a situation where the EAP would be helpful? Or FML? Are they needing even intermittent FML leave? It's not always about that continuous leave process. Or is there something from an ADA perspective that's going on? Not that you ask the employee, but have they mentioned something to you that would be a red flag that do they come out and say that they have a disability? Have they told you that they have something going on with them medically that's preventing them from performing the essential functions of their job? Any of those things come into play, reach out to HR. Okay. All right. Thank you. Did I see a hand up, Andy?
Sorry, I was waving bye to one of my employees through my work window.
Gotcha. Thank
Sorry
you.
about
All right, awesome. So we're thank you for the feedback on that. We are gonna go ahead and move forward, and we're gonna move on to Bob. So who had Bob?
So my partner and I had Bob. So
okay.
I'll read it and
awesome.
Guess I'll talk about it. Gotta find the okay. So for Bob has been a good employee for the past 4 years, but over the past 3 or 4 months, he has not been paying attention to detail as much as he used to. The work that he is turning in is of poor quality, even though he knows the expectations required and has met them consistently in the past. Also, you have issued 4 records of counseling or verbal warnings in 3 months for not following proper call-in procedures.
What are your thoughts? Thank you.
We decided that because this has been going on for almost a quarter of the year. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
It's been going on almost a quarter of the year that we would hope that in that 3 months there'd been a referral to employee resources by now, because we're going on the 4th month. So basically distracted, doesn't care, is this every day, every week? So the assumption is going to have to be that, let's just say it's every day he's not meeting expectations and the work that he's turning in. You're talking about somebody having to redo a report, redo his work. Somebody else is pulling 2 jobs, his job and their job. It's been going on for a long time. The referrals have been made. There's been 4 records of counseling and verbal warnings. So we would write a written reprimand.
A written reprimand. Okay, understood. One thing I will say is that as the supervisor, so if this were your employee or if it was someone else's employee, we're not able to tell whether or not they actually have received the resources available. It does seem like it may be something temporary. What changed in their environment? Is there a change that's taking place at work? Did their work schedule change? Did they experience a loss? Whether it's a loss of a person, home or something, did they experience some type of situation? So there are some things, and it does, those things do not negate the fact that you can enter into progressive discipline with that employee, but what have those coaching and counseling sessions entailed? I think understanding that foundation for that, and you did say the resources have been given. Okay, well, if you're calling in, is it a medical situation? Are you needing to take FML leave? And the information to the employee, point them to human resources. I see that you've been calling in on a regular basis. Is it a pattern? Have you mentioned to the employee, is it that you've noticed a pattern? The other thing too, are they working a second job? That's causing them not to be able to get up. We have a dual employment outside activity process that any employee would need to complete, a form that they would need to complete in order to be able to work on a second job or perform a second activity. So there are a lot of factors that come into play. So I appreciate what you brought forth. And yes, if you've been going through all of this process, things aren't improving, you can issue a written warning, but we would definitely want to make sure that we've been able to offer all of the resources that the employee could benefit from. And again, it's up to them to take that step. And if they don't, it's on them. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. So we are going to move along to, let's take a look at the boss.
Okay. So your boss recently gave you several projects that are considered top priority in order to ensure that your department is in line with its strategic priorities. You already have a plate and a half worth of work, but you take it on and have to delegate some of the workload to your staff. You ask everyone to take on the extra projects without going into the details of why. You're stressed out and need to talk about what's going on in the department, so you confide in a trusted staff member / direct report. That employee, being very well-intentioned, shares this information with your team. She is confident that it will help morale. You did not ask your employee to keep this information private, so the employee assumes that it's fine to discuss it with the team.
Thoughts? Thank you.
So there were a few things that we noticed with this scenario. The big one is we're not entirely sure that any disciplinary action needed to be taken. It honestly, it kind of reads like mistakes were made, but they're easy to fix. The employee here, mentions that they're heavily stressed out. Maybe just when they were delegating, they forgot to explain the why. And that can be a simple, oops, I'm so sorry. Here's why we're doing this, email, or a follow-up meeting if it needs, if it needs to be. It also sounds like there might have been failure on the direct reports for not asking why. Which again, simple mistake. They're getting a lot of information. They may not have thought about that in the moment. And then, confiding with the trusted staff member, direct report. They did not get the sense that it was confidential information, so they shared. They had information. They saw that their fellow employees were stressed and concerned, so they tried what they could.
True. And I agree. And it may not, maybe it's a conversation that, the supervisor, when they were talking to the employee, they could have said, this is confidential. I'm sharing this piece with you but I am going to come, with your team or whatever have you. Then also the other thing is that when you're sharing confidential information, you need to be mindful of who you're sharing it with. It may not be necessary for you to tell the team that, oh, I'm stressed out. Straightforward. This is what we need to do. This is what we need let's have a huddle. This is what we need to do. Here's my game plan for it. What are your thoughts? That way, as a supervisor, you're not stressing about how it's going to get done, and you're allowing your team to come in and actually give their input so they feel like they're a part of the solution, and that stress isn't being pushed on to your teammate. Or your direct reports. What do I need to do so my boss can be successful? Or I got to do this. It's a collective effort. And again, confidential conversations, think twice before you share. And because anything that you share can be said, relayed by someone else, but I think definitely make the expectations clear. And so yeah, great feedback. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we are going to move to Maria now.
I can read Maria for us if you guys want.
Yeah.
Okay. Maria has worked in your department for about 1.5 years. She has not had any notable issues with attendance until recently. Within the past 2 months, Maria has called in sick 3 times and was gone for 3 to 4 days each time that she was sick. She brings in doctor's notes indicating that she was under the care of her doctor, but she is still in violation of her department's attendance expectations. So far this semester, she's missed 11 days. When she when she returned to work after the first round of absences, she told you that she is on a new medication for a chronic condition that she was recently diagnosed with. She says that the medication is making her physically sick. She also mentions that she is in pain most days when she works and while completing some of her work tasks.
Yes, you want to go first?
Yeah. We discussed, I've been in this situation. This hits home. So the first thing I thought of is what can we do to help Maria? Let's, find out how to get her on FMLA. Let's find out what the root of the problem is so we can help her get through this.
Yeah. So to piggyback off that, we looked at it and it was like, my mind went to accommodations before discipline. I'm naturally a people over policy person. And I think this is one of the situations where it's like, okay, we know we have this policy, but let's see what she needs directly. So yeah, that's what we discussed in our group.
Well, thank you. And you guys hit the nail on the head, right? So that is the highlight for this particular situation. She mentioned chronic condition and the impact of the medication that she's taking and the impact that it's taking on her to be able to perform the essential functions of her job, which part of that is attendance. FML is one of them. Because again, I mentioned in the previously about the opportunity for intermittent leave that may be at play, but maybe she can perform her job duties. She just may need some type of an accommodation. We do have a workplace accommodation person who works with administrator. And so when you connect with your HR business partner, let them know, and they will be able to help you navigate that process to connect you with our workplace accommodations administrator. So that way the employee could get the help they need if you guys ever encounter that situation. If in doubt at any point in time, always reach out to us. Okay. Thank you guys for that feedback. That was great. So let's see, who do we have next? We have John.
That's us. I guess I'll read and I'll explain because we didn't realize we had to read. Okay, so John works in your department. You have noticed that even though he is scheduled to work from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, he's often determined to be MIA from his workspace. When you go to look for him, you find him outside on his cell phone. Each time that this has happened to him, okay, you have talked to him and explained that he should not be spending so much time on his personal phone during work and that he is expected to let someone know when he is taking his break. His disappearances are continuing despite your discussions with him. To convolute matters further, you have recently issued a written warning to him last week for his use of profanity around customers. So what we were thinking is like, okay, you just did a written warning about profanity, not about the situation. So we thought that you should send him a few emails reminding him like, hey, you do not need to be on your personal phone during work hours, just so you have that documentation, and then do a verbal.
Okay. So I would say, since the written warning has been issued, and I can appreciate the fact about the verbal, maybe if we take a step back, is there something that this is something that's recent that's taking place with him? Have there been some changes in his family dynamic? You know, is he possibly, and it's not to ask, but again, providing those resources for him as an employee, I've noticed some changes in your behavior. We've talked about the level of customer service using profanity in front of customers. You've already received a written reprimand. If there's something personal that's going on, do you need time away from work? You have the leave options that are available to you. That way you can sort things out and then come back to work. And are you having issues with with your job? Or is there something related to your job that I can assist you with? Who knows if he's sneaking off, maybe as a family member who's in the hospital, and, you know, frustrating, navigating things with doctors and insurance and all of that stuff that could be causing his frustration that's spilling over. Approaching with the thought with care and concern, wanting to help, but with the expectation, hey, if you need to, then you can take your lunch break during this time if this is when you're expecting to receive calls.
I did have a question about that. I know from like HR, like we can't really ask what's going on. Like personally, we can't expect them to tell us.
Right.
But like, how do you get your people to tell you these kind of things? Like, I know it's like trust, but how can you work around getting them to tell you specifics?
We want to try to steer away from specifics sometimes.
Right.
Because, I mean, ultimately, it goes back to that a relationship that you've established with your staff, letting them know that they have an open door. They can come to you with concerns if they need help with their work or whatever have you, that they can come to you. And even if they can come in and say, I have a personal problem that I'm dealing with, and I've got to figure some things out. This is impacting my ability to do my job. It's not an ADA thing, but okay, so here's some EAP resources. Here's information for guidance resources for ComPsych. You can reach out. It's a concierge service. It's not just about counseling. Do you need someone from a legal perspective? Do you need help finding providers for, you know, childcare? Is it, you know, legal, financial? So it just kind of depends. And in extreme cases, if you're ever concerned about an employee's well-being, whether they've told you that they've experienced some type of a loss and you're concerned about their personal safety, they may be considering harm or something along those lines, you can also do a care team call. And we'll get it'll go through the system, but it'll come to us for staff employees. And then we can figure out what we can do to get the employee the resources that they need. So just offering all of those options to them. Because trust me, sometimes when people say stuff, you're like, I can't unhear that. And it's not in a sense where you don't care. It's like, oh my gosh, this is heavy. Okay. But just letting them know, and they can always reach out to HR if they don't want to speak with you as their supervisor. They can always reach out to us, and we'll help them get them connected with the right folks. Okay. Thank you for asking that, Tammy. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one. Is there a correct way to like just say, you know, one-on-one, hey, hey, it seems like you've been having some difficulties. Is there any way I can help you? Or is that a nice and the correct way without breaking HR rules? I've never worked anywhere with HR. I don't.
And then, you know what, it's not necessarily breaking HR rules. It's just that if we don't want an employee to feel that they have to share their personal protected health information.
Okay, I got you.
So we, it's a
Basically,
delicate
don't pry, basically.
Exactly. Some people are an open book. They will share they will go stand in the parking lot and yell everything. So, and then that's just them. But not everyone is comfortable. You just want your employees comfortable enough to say, and offering the help. How can I help you in this situation? Or how can I connect you with the appropriate resources? I think that leaves that door open for them to communicate that there is a need.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming, but I didn't. I had one last question. What does ADA stand for?
It's Americans with Disabilities Act. And so there are some situations, there are actually quite a few situations that are out there that are labeled as disabilities. And in some cases, an employees who may have a disability may not need an accommodation because they're able to perform the essential functions of their job. But if their medical condition, whether it's one from a physical perspective or a mental perspective, because there are different things, there's seen and unseen disabilities. If it's causing them not to be able to perform their job successfully, then they can submit a request and go through the ADA process and receive an accommodation based on their request and what their doctor has indicated as their need.
That could be something like PTSD or something. I mean, anything along the lines, I guess.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I got you. I appreciate it. Thanks for answering that question.
Yeah, we've, of course, and I appreciate you asking that. It could be anything from lighting, moving to a quieter area or whatever, but it just depends on that person.
I got you. Thank you very much.
Of course, my pleasure. We are running a little bit close on time. So, let's see, let's go through Tina. And then, who hasn't shared? Who hasn't spoken? Okay, Erica. Okay, so Erica's group. Is there another group that has not gone yet?
Yeah, we haven't gone. We have Tina, Scott, and I do.
Okay, so
Sorry.
let's go with Tina. No, you're good. I want to
My
be.
my group has gone. My group just went with John, so we're good.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. So who has Tina?
Scott and I have Tina.
Okay, so instead of reading the scenario, why don't you just talk about what your thoughts are for Tina?
Yeah, so to just kind of summarize it, she's been a good performer for 2 years, but then in the span of about 3 weeks has some issues where a student complains about being rude, kind of snaps at us about a project, and then has another situation where she's sarcastic and rude with a customer. Our first thought was that, if she's been a good performer for 2 years and there's this sudden, turn, maybe there's something else going on. So have a discussion with her and see, whether it's something at work or something outside of work. Is there anything going on that we can support her with, resource wise or anything like that? Beyond that, it says, after the first complaint, we decided to let the complaint go since we haven't had any issues. Our first thought was that should have been documented. We should have gotten the student side of the story at least. And then the situation where she snapped with us, it says you addressed the behavior, but we didn't necessarily know what that meant. How did we address the behavior? Was it just a coaching, or did we provide a verbal warning at that point? But yeah, our first kind of course of action was, see if there's something going on that she needs support with, since it's, resulting in performance issues with customer service. But if that doesn't work, then obviously it needs to go through the progressive discipline process.
True. And maybe she's not just maybe there's a lack of motivation. Maybe she's not feeling challenged. Have in your regular meetings with your employees, are you discussing professional development opportunities? So that could be, and I apologize if this is still showing John on the screen. Discussions is so good. So, but yeah, so those are things that you can talk about. And then maybe it does need to be a verbal coaching, counseling. She's being rude to customers. Your customers are your clients, so they can turn around. Okay. Sheila, I think we're hearing your feedback. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for that feedback on that group. So Karen, who has Karen?
We have Karen.
Okay.
I think Shelley was gonna read. Oh, we're not
Okay.
gonna read.
So if you guys
Just
really
to give
quickly.
you a brief background, Karen is currently having problems at work, performance. And Mary is the manager or supervisor. And in the discussion, Karen indicated that she's having her husband's abusive, her son's on drugs, and she is using alcohol to cope with that. And she's late to work. She's not getting her work done. Some of her coworkers are doing some of her work. Mary's response was, once she understood the situation, was to give her a week's vacation and didn't discuss performance. We didn't feel that was the right or the appropriate way to handle it. I think we think obviously first and foremost you want to show empathy, affirm that you care, first, and that she definitely needs to get some help, most importantly for herself, but also there's that you've noticed some performance issues, and that that we can't have that sort of performance moving forward. So we thought that sick leave might be a better approach,
Okay.
and maybe to go seek some sort of help if you don't know what to do, contact HR and they can walk you through that. And maybe a situation where FMLA that might be that kind of situation. And I guess that's about it.
Okay. Well, you guys are headed in the right direction. I think giving the employee the opportunity to take their leave is, they're taking their paid time. They need to take care of their stuff, what's going on. Potentially a care team referral. Because of the extenuating circumstances, the employees mentioned that they do have a situation that may even fall under ADA. The survivor advocate, because she mentioned that she is in an abusive relationship. And the FMLA may be well needed, or the leave may be needed. Maybe she's trying to escape and go to a safe place or move or something along those lines. What I would suggest is discussing the performance upon her return, because it still needs to be addressed, but you want to allow the employee time to resolve whatever issues they may be encountering. So thank you for that feedback. I do want to be respectful of you guys' time. It is 4:01 and the session was supposed to go until 4 p.m. If really quickly I could just give you tidbits about a couple of the cases that we did not get to. So Philip, that particular case talks about someone you suspected of stealing something. If you believe that someone has stolen something, you do have a right to ask them to inspect their bag, and let them know that you believe that, and then also contact UNT PD. If you're uneasy about that process, please feel free to reach out to definitely your business partner. That's what we're here for. The situation with Sally and Michael, we want to be fair and equitable. Just because we live in the neighborhood with so-and-so does not mean that they get preferential treatment. If again, if you're treating one person one way, you treat the other person that way. And it's best to address the situation early on. Have the dialogue about it. I mean, even the dialogue may be a little bit easier with Michael, since you guys see one another at the kids' game. It's like, hey, I noticed XYZ. You may want to be mindful that, you know, you're getting to work on time and not just give them a leeway because you see them in the school drop-off line. And not, again, someone mentioning having kids. There isn't a preferential treatment from that perspective. If you have flexibility within your department, you talk with each employee about their flexibility needs, and how you guys are able to work through that. But the employees are still expected to perform to standards and adhere to department standards. Okay. Any questions, concerns? You guys have been awesome. I'm loving the feedback that you've given, the dialogue that we've had. This has been a great session, and I appreciate you guys for participating.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's my understanding that business partners are kind of assigned by area or something like that. So is there a list of business partners so we would know who our best contact would be, or are those listed somewhere that we could find those?
We do have a list. So on the UNT HR website, in the participant toolkit, it will take you to an area where you can find a list of business partners. I mentioned early on, we had some difficulty getting everyone into the session, but we are adjusting our list. We've had a departure recently, and so there's some reassigning that's going on a temporary basis. And so I want to make sure that I get you guys the most up-to-date and correct list, just because of that shuffling. But again, you can call the main HR line. If you want to reach out to me, send me an email. You have questions, I will connect you with the appropriate business partner, and just to make sure that you're able to get to the resources that you need. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? If you have anything, again, you guys can email me. You can send me a chat message.